Can somebody please confirm you can hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. All right, before we begin, are there any questions? Let me begin by saying today is September 30th and start of week 2. We're going to be talking about, oh wow, we're going to discuss and begin the infectious disease project. I'm not sure I mentioned that, but hopefully you've seen this on the syllabus. You should take a look at the project instructions for the discussion, the infectious disease project. Any question about any of that? Let me also point out that you should read the textbook, chapter 3, through the end of the section on compound light microscopy. You need to read that before beginning labs 3 and lab 4, which we will cover next week. Any question about anything?
I do have a question about the infectious disease project. Is it in the week 2 module? Because I wasn't able to open the project itself to look at the instructions. It says that it's locked until the 4th.
I'm not sure. Let me take a look. I don't believe I set that this term, so that must have been something that carried over from an earlier term. And I do know the dates for at least the quizzes were all wrong when I carried it from another term. Let's see, we can get out of here. And I'll leave that for the lecture. Obviously, no one's read it because you can't get to it. Let me change the date there. All right, now you can get to it. Before I begin, I don't think I'm sharing my screen. Is that correct? Yeah, I'm not sharing my screen. Let me talk a little bit about the grading. I'm going to call up the grade book here just to make my job a little easier, which is why I asked if I was sharing my screen. I got the worksheet for lecture 1 graded. I got the environmental quiz graded. I have not got the Plagy quiz graded. I have to take a look and see if you showed me the complete environment around your computer. And I probably won't get that graded until Wednesday. My goal is to get that graded tonight and in the latest early tomorrow, so that you'll have 2 quizzes where you've supposedly shown me your computer environment, and I'll give you a comment in the Plagy quiz if you did not show me your complete environment and tell you how to show me the complete environment. If you miss that question, which is the first question of the Plagy quiz, I will not count that against the 100% for the quiz. You need to get 100% on the Plagy quiz to get credit for the infectious disease project. So that won't count. Any question about that? All right, let me talk a little bit about the environmental quiz. About 50% of you did not get a point or an extra credit point on top of it, meaning 2 points for the environmental quiz. And let me see if I can take that here, which is a really lousy percentage. That means less than, or about at best 50% of you are showing me your complete environment around the computer. And I've decided that I'm going to postpone the next quiz, which is practice quiz 1, until Saturday of this week. And on Wednesday, if you did not get 1 point on the environmental quiz, I have a retake of the environmental quiz. And this will be due 11:59 p.m. this night, Tuesday night, till 11:59 p.m. Wednesday night. And you'll have another chance at showing me your complete environment around the quiz. And if you get, um, that's not out of one really, but if you get, show me your complete environment in the retake of the environmental quiz, I'll give you 1 point. But there is a cost of taking this retake of the environmental quiz, and that is if you don't show me your complete environment around your computer, you're going to get a 0 on the retake of the environmental quiz. And on the first environmental quiz, I gave partial credit, meaning if you showed me part of your environment, I gave you partial credit. And I'm not going to do that on the retake. You're either going to get a 0 or a 1. And so if you have a partial credit on the environmental quiz and you take the retake and you get a 0, that's the grade you're going to get on the environmental quiz. Meaning the retake, you're not going to get any points for that unless you take it and you're going to get the point for the retake in the environmental quiz. Is that clear to everyone? Maybe I should spell that out in the retake because I've got it stated for 1 point, so it'll be graded by the system, but it's not going to count for the total points. So this is a retake of the environmental quiz.
I've got a question.
Just let me change this and I'll do it. Um, Here we go. So if your quiz is lower in the environmental quiz, you'll get that score, meaning the 0, for the retake of the environmental quiz. If this quiz score is lower, you'll get that score instead of the environmental quiz. And then let me put in here, this quiz worth 0 points because your score here will be moved to the environmental quiz. So if you got more than 1 point on the environmental quiz, you should not take the retake of the environmental quiz because you can only get a 0 or a 1 on the retake. And if you get a 0, that will lower your score on the environmental quiz. Any question about that? All right, let me save this. And then somebody had another question. What was your question?
No, you answered it.
All right. So there's no extra credit on the retake of the environmental quiz, and you're only going to be showing me the scan of your environment one time. You're not going to get it an option to do this before starting the quiz. You have to show me the scan during the quiz. This quiz may be taken 2 times, so if you decide yourself that you didn't do a good job, you can take the quiz again. I don't think you students can see the scan. Can somebody confirm that to me?
You cannot see it while you're taking the quiz.
Can you see it after you take the quiz?
The only time you can see yourself is in the pre-check for the environmental. You can rewatch the video, but during the quiz and after, you can't see what you were doing.
Okay, then you will not be able to see the retake because you're going to be giving me the scan during the quiz. There is no environmental scan before you begin the quiz. Any question about any of that? All right. So you should only take the environmental quiz if you're intending to show me a better environment, meaning your complete environment around your computer. And like I said, the best way to take the environmental quiz, I said this before, is to move your monitor down uh, 0. I don't know if you can see my hand or my face, so I can see where your computer is at the start, and then show me the right side, complete right side. I don't know if you can see that, probably not. And then the complete left side. And I want to see the edge of the table or the desk or whatever you have your computer on. And then I'll say that you're showing me your complete environment. It's best if you show me where the computer is at the start because that will anchor it in my brain where your computer is sitting, and then I will be able to compare what you're showing me on the right side and the left side with where your computer is sitting. Some students show me where their computer is sitting at the very end, and it makes it hard for me to figure out they show me the entire right side and the entire left side of where their computer is sitting. So please show me that at the beginning, and then I won't have to rewatch the scan several times. There was one lady, I think I had to rewatch the scan 10 times to determine did she show me the entire environment around her computer or not. And that's because she didn't show me the scan where the computer was sitting at the beginning. And then also it's the way that she showed me the left and the right side. And I didn't know if it was overlapping or not. And like I said, I had to go 10 times to determine that there was something on the desk, like a speck or something, and I could see it in both the right scan and the left scan. So I figured she did show me everything. It's just that it wasn't hard. It was just very hard to determine that.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Are we allowed to change locations?
Sorry, what are you asking?
Like, can we change locations? Let's say, like, I'm taking this quiz today. I'm using a different location. I mean, this location. But the next or the future quizzes, I decide to change a different location.
Yeah,
Are
you
we
can change
allowed
the
to?
location that your computer is. A laptop obviously can be moved around, but if you take the quiz like at Clark College, I recommended that to some students, either because they had a slow internet connection or some other problem. Um, you can take your laptop very easily to Clark College and just log into the internet there. They have a fast internet connection. And then you can also use a different computer, assuming you have Respondus Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor on both computers. So I don't care about that. I will ask you each time before the quiz to show me your environmental scan. Okay? And that will
Okay.
actually be during the quiz. From now on, you'll be doing the scan during the quiz. And that's because I want to see where your scan is while you're taking the quiz. There will be much less chance that a student could cheat if this happens. And so that's why I'm doing it this way. Any question about any of that? All right. And I also have lab 0, 1, 0, 0 graded. So you can take a look at that. I'm starting lab 1. I don't know if I'm going to be finished by Wednesday morning with lab 1. If I do not finish, well, it doesn't matter because you don't get to resubmit lab 1, so it doesn't matter when I get it graded. So I'll get that graded at least before Saturday, and then you will be able to take a look at how you're answering the questions and what got wrong. And you can use that for lab 2, which is due this Saturday. Any question on any of that? All right, if not, let me show you my computer screen. Let me get out of the grade book here. Show you my computer screen, and then we'll begin discussion on the infectious disease project. So the infectious disease project can be found right there under week 2 lab. I'm not going to open it here because it won't, it'll be opening within Canvas, which will not show it as good. So I'm going to talk about it directly from my computer. If I can find it, there it is. In the infectious disease project, you will focus on a specific bacterial infectious, meaning infectious disease, with the goal of determining the underlying cause of the disease, what the microbe does to the human body, how we treat the disease, how social, economic, and political factors affect our ability to deal with the disease. And essentially, you're going to become an expert on one particular disease. The disease you choose has to be an infectious disease, and the first person who requests it will get that disease. So everybody has to have a different disease, and the first person who requests will get that disease. Now, let me state that I can break some of the diseases up, like pneumonia. You can't write it on pneumonia because there's many different causes of pneumonia. But one person can write it on pneumonia caused by Klebsiella pneumoniae. Another person can write it on pneumonia caused by Streptococcus pneumoniae. Another person can write it on pneumonia caused by a fungal infection, and I'm not sure which fungal infection. I imagine Candida albicans causes pneumonia, but I'm not positive of that. A yeast infection, and then there are viral species which can cause pneumonia. So pneumonia can be broken up into many different species that can cause disease. And then there's malaria. There's at least 5 malaria species that cause malaria. Let me see if I can remember the name of that. Paramecium? No, that's not right. Anyways, there's 5 microbes, species that can cause malaria. And what you can do is write malaria caused by one species of the parasite. And each of the species gives slightly different disease, like slightly different disease characteristics. So there are some diseases that I can split up, like HIV. I can split it up to being caused by HIV-1 and HIV-2. And there are some disease differences between HIV caused by HIV-1 and HIV-2. So some of the diseases I do split up, in which case you have to choose how I split it up. And when you request it, I'll send you an email back saying that, I split this disease up into this type of category, and which do you want? Tuberculosis. I split it up into early stage tuberculosis and late stage tuberculosis. And you may talk about the other diseases caused by malaria in a sentence or two, but the main focus of your discussion should be on your topic. Like for tuberculosis, you should be talking about, if you choose the early stage tuberculosis, you should only be talking about the early stage tuberculosis and only spend like a sentence or two on late stage tuberculosis. Any question about any of that? So
How do we go
starting,
about requesting it?
I'm
Do we just,
sorry,
how do we go about requesting one? Do we just email you?
you just email me in Canvas,
Okay.
okay? And the first person who requests it will get that disease. Another one I can split up is the flu. I talk about the flu caused by influenza A, influenza B, and influenza C. And you won't know until you request it, in which case I'll send it back to you, and I'll reserve that for you in my log, and then you get back to me, and then somebody else will ask it, I'll send out what the other options are. All right. You can read about the rationale. The project format, you pick a disease, check with your instructor first about the disease. I will determine whether it's an infectious disease or not, and then whether the disease is taken or not. If it is not taken and it is an infectious disease, you can do that project. Realize we have 40 different students here choosing a disease. So unless you're asking on the very first day, you should always ask for a backup. If in case the first disease choice has been taken, you've got a backup for your second disease choice. You should then learn about your assigned disease. Clark College Library has a database to help you search. And I think you used to be able to easily get onto the database just by going to the library. I'm not sure that's the case anymore, but the librarians can help you do the search or show you where the database is. And then really all you're doing is whenever you do a search in the Clark College Library, you'll be doing a search of the database. And then you submit a written report. The report must be typed, must be single spaced with 1-inch margins and a 12-point font size. Anything smaller than 12-point font, I'm going to have trouble reading. If you notice, I've got glasses and these are reading glasses. So make sure you have a 12-point font, otherwise I'll have trouble reading it. You should have a cover where you have your name of the disease, your name, the date, the course name, but do not have a cover page. Although I don't print it out anymore, I think that the cover page is just a waste of space. And so put your cover information on the first page of the body of your text. Any question about any of that? And if you do that, I think you actually get 2 points for giving me the cover information on the same page as the body of your text. The text should not exceed 5 single pages of text material. That does not count the bibliography. It does not count any pictures. Anything less than 4 pages, you'll get a penalty. Anything more than 6 pages of text, you'll also get a penalty, meaning it should be around 5 pages, plus or minus 1. In the text, you should describe all aspects of the disease and the organism causing it. And you should list these in the report content, which I'm going to talk about here. The material presented in the text is worth 60 points, 60 of the 100, and an additional 15 points for the grammar, the spelling, the flow, and the readability of your report. Any question about any of that? So as much as possible, the text should be written in your own words. Only use direct quotes where absolutely necessary. In some place I've got this in here. I'm not seeing it here. But if I find over 50% of your paper is in direct quotes, you're going to get a penalty. Meaning I do not want 50% or more of your paper in direct quotes. As much as possible, you should be writing everything in your own words. Anything that does not have, is not commonly known, meaning any fact that's not commonly known, whether it's quoted directly or you paraphrase it in your own words, must be cited with a proper in-text citation. And this should be immediately after the fact. So right before the period of the sentence. Otherwise, you're not stating where you got your fact from. So any fact that is not common knowledge, you should put a source, an in-text citation. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But if you're saying something like the flu affected, I don't know, 1,200,000 people in the United States last year, that's not commonly known, so you should give an in-text citation. If, on the other hand, you state something like the flu infected a lot of people last year, that's commonly known, you don't need to give an in-text citation. Any question about any of that? You should also give an in-text citation after you directly quote something, including if you are getting the information from an AI. You should put an in-text citation for where you got that information from your AI. Otherwise, it is plagiarism, meaning you're using somebody else's words as your own, and that is plagiarism. If you plagiarize in this paper, you will get a score of 0 on the paper. Any question about any of that? So if you quote somebody, you should put it in quotes and say where you got it from in an in-text citation. An in-text citation uses the style, the author's last name, and the year of publication. So let me show you that. Oh, that's kind of good. Put that there. So you're giving your information and you state a fact. We'll go Y for the fact. You should then put in parentheses where you got that fact from right after the fact or the end of the sentence. Something like Smith, and then the year of publication will go 2021. And that would be if there's only one author. If there's two authors, the in-text citation, let me go ahead and put that up there. If there's two authors, it should be, let's just go X's. Both authors' last name. And then the year of publication. If there are three or more authors, then it should be yep. And that should be a space there. Come on. There we go. It should be Smith et al. And then the year of publication. And this is about the only time you should be using et al. In the paper. in the in-text citation when there's more than two authors. And then in the full references, which I think this paper calls the citation, you should have the full reference. So for Smith, it should be his initials, 2021, the journal, the publication, the volume number. Don't ask me what it would be for 2000 and, oop. Sorry, I can't see my keyboard here. Let me get a little more light. There it is. Page number. Oh, I got something missing. The article name. So that's for a journal. Let me go ahead and put this here. For a book, it should be something like let's go ahead and make this another one. And then the chapter name or the article name if it's an article in the book. The editor of the book. The publisher of the book. And the name of the book. Now let me see now. What's the order here? It's probably the name of the book. And then the city of publication. Hopefully you learned this in the plagiarism tutorial. There might be a page number too. And then for a web page, should be 2022, sorry. 2023. So I'm showing you examples for the in-text citation here, meaning there's 3 authors here for Smith et al. 2023, and then the name of the web page, which is usually the title of the web page, and then the web address. It's optional to include the date of observation, meaning the date you saw this. And that's because the web page can easily change. And it's optional. All right, any questions about the in-text citation and the full reference citations? Each in-text citation should have a full reference citation, and each full reference should have an in-text citation. Now, is that true? I suppose it may not be true. You could get information in the full reference that you're referring to in the paper, and you're not using it as an in-text citation. But the each in-text citation should have a full reference citation. For the full reference citations, you have to have 4 unique, good references. So you must have at least 4, and they have to be essentially peer-reviewed articles. Meaning if you have something from like the National Enquirer or something that's not peer-reviewed, it's not a good reference. So you must have at least 4 good references. And I got that stated in here someplace. Sources you should cite in your paper should be scientifically appropriate and reputable, such as government information from the USDA, the FDA, the CDC, etc., scientific journals, Nature, Science, popular magazines that are known to be reliable, like Scientific American, National Geographic, Time, books and textbooks on biology, microbiology, etc. If you take a look at our textbook, for example, you'll note that there's a whole list of the people who have reviewed the text. So it is a reviewed book. Newspapers of a credible source like New York Times. The National Enquirer is not credible. They don't try to be credible. So you should not be using the National Enquirer. You can take a variety of scientifically reputable television shows like the History Channel, PBS, etc. Sources to be suspicious of, they should not count. You can have it in there if it's beyond the 4 good ones, but you should really not have these sources. And that's a religious, political, or privately funded publication. Why? And a personal website. Why not these sites? Because somebody's going to have a bias, and they're going to put that bias on their web page. College and university pages that contain student work should not be cited because students make mistakes and there's nobody to go around correcting the mistakes. If it's a college or university page made by an instructor, like my web page, for example, eventually I'll find the error and then we'll correct it. So if I have an error, I will correct it. By the way, if you ever find an error, a scientific error in my web page and you can notify me of it, I'll give you an extra credit point. You should not use Wikipedia because Wikipedia, at any time, anyone can change Wikipedia. You may use Wikipedia as your initial source, but you cannot use Wikipedia as the primary source or reference. So you should always check all the information you get from Wikipedia, and usually Wikipedia gives sources for where they got the information from. So you may use Wikipedia sources. Any question about any of that? So the full citation will have the things you cite in your text of your paper. You should use the same citation style for both the in-text citation and the full reference citations. You should only use one citation in your entire page, by the way, paper, by the way. You need to have 4 unique good sources referenced in your report. And I can generally just look and determine whether you have a good source or not. The complete literature citation page is worth 15 points. The in-text citation is worth 10 points. I don't see where that's stated here, but it is worth 10 points. There it is right there. In-text citations are worth 10 points. I should actually highlight that, so remember to mention that to you. And then the final report must be submitted to the folder in Canvas, either in a document, docx document, this is MS Word format, rich text format, .rtf, .write format. I do not allow PDF because the paper will be checked with plagiarism, and for some reason PDF files sometimes have trouble with the plagiarism check. So don't plagiarize, or what is it? Turn it in. We'll note the plagiarism and we'll mark it. By the way, you can always check whether you have plagiarism or not, because on the project score, I guess I can't show you the grade book, but you can go look in the grade book, and the color coding will tell you what your plagiarism score is. Green means 20% or less. Yellow means 30% plagiarism or less. Dark yellow or orange, brownish orange, something like that, is 40% or less plagiarism. And then red is 50% or more of the paper is plagiarized. Obviously, green is okay. Yellow means I'll take a look at it to determine whether or not you actually plagiarized or not. Orange and red you do not want. You will probably get a penalty for plagiarizing. If 50% or more of the paper is plagiarized, you'll just get a 0. Now, in the plagiarism score, I'm not going to count something where you have quotes around it, because that's not plagiarism, assuming you've got an in-text citation after the quote. Or the bibliography. I think I've removed the bibliography from the plagiarism score. Realize so many people have turned in an infectious disease project at Clark now, not only my students, but other instructors' students, that it is common to find plagiarism up to about 30%. And that's because people just tend to use similar words when you describing, like I said, like the symptoms of a cold. Any question about any of that? But once you turn it in, shortly thereafter, the plagiarism check will be, and you can go take a look at what your plagiarism score is. If it's 20% or less, I'm not even going to look. Okay? If it's 30% to 20%, I'll take a look. And as long as there isn't plagiarism, meaning major plagiarism, it'll be okay. If it's 40%, I will take a look and you'll probably get a deduction. And 50% or more of the paper plagiarized, you'll get a 0 on the paper. Any question about any of that? And by the way, this happens to detect if you use AI. So if you use AI, you should state that you used AI in your index citation and then give a full reference for where you got the text from AI. And you should do this even if you use the AI in paraphrasing, meaning you don't put it in quotes. You should still give an in-text citation that you got it from an AI source and then put it in the full references. And it's very easy to determine if a paper has been written by AI. If you have a sentence or more written by AI, I can just submit it to an AI and ask it to check for AI, and it'll tell me. A Turnitin can do that, although I think it has to be more than a sentence for Turnitin, but I will get that. And so if you use an AI, you should be writing things in your own words anyways. You can use AI. I'm not saying you can't, but you should give an in-text citation. Otherwise, you're plagiarizing the AI. Any question about any of that? All right. The body of the text should have different context area, and you should have a subject heading within your paper so I know where each section begins and where each section ends. So you should have a section called the causative agent where you talk about what causes the disease. If it's a bacterium, a virus, a prion, or a eukaryote, state that. If it's a bacterium, you should give the characteristics of the cell. What's the Gram reaction? What's the cell shape? What's the cellular growth arrangement? And what are some metabolic capabilities of the species causing the disease? Anything else that's of importance to the species or the disease should be stated here as well. If it's a virus, what are the viral characteristics? Is it a DNA virus or an RNA virus? If it's an RNA virus, you should state whether it's double-stranded RNA or positive single-stranded RNA or negative single-strand RNA virus. You should also state whether it's a retrovirus, whether the virus is envelope or naked, how large the virus is there a provirus in this virus life cycle, and on there are unique characteristics of its multiplication cycle. You can read about the rest. You should then have a section on the history. How long have we known about the disease? How has the disease historically been treated? What's the history of vaccine development? And then describe changes in our knowledge and attitude towards the disease throughout history. Even COVID-19, which is a really new disease hitting the human population, our knowledge and attitudes of this disease have changed dramatically throughout history. Initially, people were very concerned about the disease, and everyone was wearing masks, avoiding other people. And nowadays, you go to the grocery store, you hardly see anyone wearing a mask. People are not worried anymore about getting COVID-19 disease. And actually, that's a problem for the elderly. They do not want to get COVID-19. In my opinion, they should be wearing a mask to prevent getting COVID-19, unless they've gotten the most recent vaccine against COVID-19. They should be wearing a mask because if they get it, it can cause a very serious or even a lethal disease. And it's true that can be lethal even in a young individual, but it's much less likely to happen. Then you should have a section called epidemiology, a section on pathology, a section on the response and treatment, and a section on the social, political, and economic considerations. And you should read through what should be in each section. I'm not going to go through it now. So if you do not have the subheadings, you'll get a -6 points, one for each subheading. And then I've got a little section here on artificial intelligence. Remember the tutorial on plagiarism did not cover this because AI was not around when that tutorial was made. But you should, when you use AI, state that you used AI, meaning put it in an in-text citation So the notation that people can be characterized as left brain or right brain is considered to be an oversimplification and a popular myth. This is using AI's wording, so they put it in quotes. If you paraphrase, you don't need to put it in quotes, but you should put it in an in-text citation. In this case, OpenAI, comma 2023. That's the in-text citation, and then put it in the full text citation. The references, the full references, OpenAI 2023, obtained from ChatGPT, the March 14th version, large language model, and then give the web page. All right, any question about any of that? The instructor grading rubric is on the next page here. Your paper will be graded 2 points on the cover information, 9 points on the causative agent information, 10 points on the history information, 10 points on the epidemiology information, 10 points on the pathology information, 10 points on the response and treatment information, 10 points on, 9 points on the socio-political and economic issues of this disease, 15 points on the quality of your writing. Is the grammar, the spelling, the punctuation, the flow, and the readability good? You'll get 15 points. If you have slight grammar errors, spelling errors, punctuation errors, slight flow, or even low readability, not so easy to readable, you'll get a deduction for the 15 points. In-text citation, you correctly cite information that's not common knowledge. You use the correct in-text citation format, you get 10 out of 10. The literature citation page is worth 15 points. You have to have all the in-text citations in the literature citation page. There must be at least 4 reputable sources, and you must use the correct literature citation format to get 15 out of 15. Students frequently get points missed on the in-text citation in the literature citation page, which is why I went over those topics in detail for you. And that's a total of 100 points. Remember, you only get the 100 points if you did 100% on the plagiarism tutorial. Any question about any of that? All right. That's it for the the plagiarism summary. Oh, I think I did make one change. Let me remove that, get rid of that. Let me state when this project is due. The the infectious disease project is due late in the term. Saturday, November 8th at 11:59 p.m. Any questions about the infectious disease project? All right, send me your request. Remember, you cannot choose a topic on your own. You have to get it okayed by me. If you do not get it okayed by me, you will get a 10-point penalty. I do not want 2 people working on the same project. So that's the main reason for checking. But I also will tell you if it's an infectious disease project and whether that topic has been taken, or if that topic I divided up into different categories. All right, any questions about the infectious disease project? If not, that's it for the lab. I will see you at 5. for the lecture. Somebody's got a question here. See, I didn't even know somebody made a question there. Don't use the questions because I do not see them. You don't raise your hand or use the emoticons either. I do not see them when I'm sharing my screen. It looks like they only have a question. Hopefully they ask the question. So I don't see it here.
Oh
It's not
no,
there.
I emailed you instead.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Bye.